I'm Jim Collison and live from the Gallup campus here in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as from Kurt's location in Lincoln and Danny in Irvine, California. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, recorded on April 23rd, 2015. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths Finder themes, one theme at a time, and today's theme is empathy. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you. It's right below the main video window and doesn't require any kind of login to get in. You can log in as a guest, just put your name in there, although it does support Facebook, LinkedIn, Yahoo, any of those, Google+, any of those social networks. You can use those as well. Best way to interact during the program. If you're listening to a recorded version and you need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can contact us. Just send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. That email address also works for just about any other question you have. Again, that's coaching.gallup.com. And, of course, don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just Gallup Strength Center, all one word, gallupstrengthcenter.com, for all your coaching resources and training needs. And you can also catch the video on both downloadable and for audio for offline listening to past shows. We've got tons of stuff available for you, all for free. Get it on your phone, listen to a car, on a train, in a plane, recapture that time, and you can get some great information from us. Again, all those links, including our social links, are available, coaching.gallup.com. Kurt Liesfeld is our host today. Kurt works as a senior learning and development consultant with Gallup. Here on the riverfront, he's home at Liesfeld Pond today, but Kurt, welcome to the program, and welcome to another Theme Thursday.
Thank you, Jim, and hello to all of our strengths enthusiast listeners. It's good to be back on Theme Thursday, and I'm excited today to have Danny Lee, who is a colleague of mine, a learning and development consultant from our Irvine office, who's going to be our empathy poster child, and he's going to make empathy cool today. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's kind of jump into the theme overture as talking about empathy, and empathy is one of those themes that I think is related to emotions and feelings. And obviously, we talk about talent is about a natural pattern of how people think, act, and feel. Feelings are part of what talent is, and this particular theme, I think, really begins with the emotional attention to the emotional state of others. It's people who have an awareness or a sensitivity to that. I think it also can be for people not just the ability to be in tune with how others are feeling, but maybe their own feelings, and to some degree have an ability to kind of express that emotion. So it's both the emotions of others and the emotion of the individual themselves. This particular domain, or this particular theme, falls into the relationship domain, and obviously when people have a good sense of how other people feel, it gives them an opportunity to, psychologists call it pro-social behavior. Social behavior that can kind of build relationships. And so obviously emotional understanding and emotional intelligence can certainly contribute to better relationships, so I certainly understand why it's there. Some nouns that we use. We usually try to come up with some nouns and some adjectives that kind of go along with this theme. So some nouns are obviously sensor, expressor, intuitor, absorber, listener, resonator, and then even feeler. Adjectives: listening, emotional, expressive, sensitive, aware, caring, intuitive, helpful, instinctive are kind of words. When you think about the balcony and the basement, I think this is a theme where there is some bias about this theme, and Danny and I are going to talk about this. I think sometimes the basement of empathy is that it is soft. Some people might even say weak. In terms of the balcony of this theme, though, it's really about a theme that I think creates trust, can bring feeling, knows just what to say or do. It really is about the ability to kind of customize your emotional approach to a person. In terms of themes that are kind of similar and different from this, Danny has one of the other themes that he has in his top 5 is individualization. And I think individualization and empathy have a lot in common. They really are aware of and sensitive to things that are inside of people. And individualization is really, I know who you are. I know what makes you tick in terms of the kind of person you are. Whereas empathy is more, I know how you feel. And so I think having both of those really enables a person to have real insight into people, because people have personality and people have emotions, and so I think that could be the value of that. Sometimes it's good to have some themes that can help to harden. If we think of empathy as a softer theme, there might be some themes that could harden this theme, toughen it up if it had to. And for example, a theme like command or activator, if you add that to empathy, it might sound like this. Sometimes you will need to act even though it's going to create bad feelings for someone. So that could be a theme that could add value. Maybe you're a rare person that has both command and empathy, but maybe you could partner with someone with those themes that could push you to act even though there's some emotional risk involved. Analytical is another theme that I think is probably different from empathy. Many times when empathy is high, analytical can often be lower. And so how that would work is when emotions are running high, the objective perspective might provide a more rational view of reality. So kind of blending the emotional with the logical with empathy and analytical. There are also some themes that I think can kind of intensify and really add value to empathy, and those might be themes like positivity. When you are aware of how someone is feeling, this theme can actually help people feel better. Sometimes I've kind of used the metaphor of empathy is like a thermometer. It's able to take the emotional temperature of a person. You can pretty quickly ascertain, are they mad, are they sad, are they glad? That's kind of simplifying quite a bit. So that's a thermometer. Positivity is a bit more like a thermostat. It has this ability to kind of turn up, and obviously command might be another theme that could really influence emotion. And even harmony is another thing that's more thermostatic in nature. It's really trying to manage the emotional temperature in a room. So those themes could kind of play together in that way. There's kind of some interesting statistics around empathy. Empathy, 18% of our database has empathy in their top 5. And in the scheme of our whole database, that's really kind of 7th most frequent. Now, if you break that down male and female, and this is something we'll talk about a little bit later as well, for women, empathy is number 5 on the female top 5. Empathy is 5th most likely. In men, it's 20. So this is one area where there seems to be some gender differences. This is not exclusive. Obviously, there are women who don't have empathy in their top 5, and there are men who do have empathy in their top 5. But it seems to be an area where there are some differences. The theme that's most likely paired with empathy is developer, which really makes some sense to me. I think empathy and developer kind of have a common interest in others, how others are feeling and helping others grow. And I have a feeling they kind of, the nurturing and investing part really kind of work together. The theme that's least likely paired with empathy is significance. And so that makes some sense as well. I found some quotes, and I found it kind of interesting when I was looking for quotes. Many of the quotes about empathy came from people involved in the arts, acting, music, and there's some that are really quite interesting. I'll just read this first one here. This first one isn't an actor or a musician, but this is Stephen Covey says this: "When you show deep empathy toward others, their defensive energy goes down and positive energy replaces it. That's when you can get more creative in solving problems. So there is something about empathy that kind of lowers the defensiveness of people. Here's another one. Susan Sarandon, who is an actress, this is what she said. I think I'm an because I have very strong imagination and empathy. I never studied active, but those two qualities are exactly the qualities that make for an activist. And it's interesting that many times we all know actors and actresses who become kind of activists for causes, and it could be that maybe the source of that activism is the passion and emotional empathy that they feel for a person or for a cause or for a group of people. And here's one more. Empathy is the starting point for a community and taking action. It is the impetus for creating change. And I like these, and I think I'm going to bring in Danny now. I like these because I think sometimes people perceive empathy as kind of just a state of feeling. It's an emotional state. And from what some of these people here, they're really talking about this being kind of the impetus for action. Danny, welcome to the show. Could you just kind of introduce yourself to our listeners here?
Thank you, Kurt. Pleasure to be here. My name is Danny Lee, and at Gallup, I serve kind of two roles. One is a consultant to organizations and companies, and another is as a coach to leaders, teachers, managers, and like that. I've been with Gallup for about 9 years, and so in my role, sometimes I'm in front of executives presenting data and providing the consulting services. Sometimes I'm spending more one-on-one time with managers and leaders in a coaching capacity. Sometimes I'm very geeky. I'm deep into numbers, crunching data, and analyzing, reviewing data. Sometimes I'm in front of a larger group, facilitating and stimulating their thoughts and innovation and new ideas. My top five, I lead with individualization, and empathy would be my number two. Third is connectedness, and fourth is harmony, and my last is developer.
So I'd like to have you just tell us a little bit how, and you've given us a good description of your role, how has empathy contributed to your effectiveness or success in your coaching, in your consulting, in your facilitating?
Certainly. Well, if we think about my role, it's much about meeting people, presenting to people. The big part of my role is helping people understand and get clarity, either on their business or about themselves, so that that clarity can help them make decisions towards their aspiration, either as an organization or as a leader or as a person. And alongside, because as the Princeton University professor and Nobel Prize winner said, Danny Kahneman, he said that people make decisions 70% based on emotions and 30% based on ration, that emotion is pretty much a big part of who we are, how we make decisions and view data and take actions. So me being able to use my empathy kind of radar, so to speak, really helps me to understand who they are, what they want, and what their exact needs are. It helps me to dial up my presentations, dial down my presentations. It helps me make decisions what kind of words to use and what kind of words not to use. Should I go faster? Should I go slower? Should I go more into details, or should I just move forward into future actions? So all of those little decisions that I make in my professional role is based on my empathy. What do I sense in my clients' emotions?
Yeah. So I'm just curious. I'm always interested to think about the source or the
Hmm.
genesis of a theme in a person. And do you see anything in your background, either your experiential background or your genetic background,
Hmm.
that would contribute to the empathy that you have?
Well, I think genetically, as someone who's genetically born with a very handsome face, empathy has a lot to do with it. Just kidding. I don't know about the genetics part. Um,
Well, like, did your dad or mom? I mean, your parents or other relatives that you
mhm.
had who were.
I think a lot of my family members had a very high sense of awareness of who they are among other people. Um, I'm not sure if it was necessarily empathy theme per se. For myself, I think back, how empathy, if it was nurtured, I will say that I grew up in a very conservative family, and my father had a big influence on, and he was a, pretty charismatic figure when I was young. And I think being part of a family with a very strong father figure, I always had it to be very alert of, what was the right thing to do, right thing to say,
Uh-huh.
to keep peace and harmony within the house. So I think, in a sense, that did help me fine tune my ability to read people's emotions, read people's signals. I think at school too, it was when I was 3 years old, I first moved to the U.S. from Korea. So I was the kid who was not able to speak English, and I think at that phase, the only sensory ability for me to survive or adapt was using my kind of raw
Huh.
empathy talent to watch my body language, try to read other people's emotions and body language. Am I doing something wrong? Am I in trouble? Um, and then what happened was, when I was 7 years old, I actually went back to Korea, which now I'm like I start off as the kid who couldn't speak English. Now I go back and say I'm the kid who can't speak Korean. So, and it was a very different educational environment. It was a very collective culture where in the States, I think my classroom at the time was like 21 students or so. And now I'm exposed to this large classroom setting, very formal, conservative, with 60 students in the classroom. So, and there are definitely more rules and policies that I had to follow and be aware of. So, I keenly had to observe other students' behavior, and I think that helped in my early age to kind of make my radar sensory a little bit more
You know,
fine.
that's really an interesting story, and I wouldn't be surprised that did play some role in the honing of
Mm-hmm.
that emotional intelligence that you had, because I know that I have kids that have kids. They talk to my grandkids, and I remember when my grandkids were young, one of the kids was crying, and the mother, my daughter-in-law, or my son would say, "Use your words."
Mm-hmm.
To communicate. And when you're in a world where you don't know the language as well, when you're Korean and you don't know English as well, you were almost forced to rely on other kinds of communication and other kinds
Mm-hmm.
of understanding other than logic. It was just this ability to be attentive to what do they look like, what
Mm-hmm.
are they feeling, and really kind of getting tuned into to reading that. So Danny, I don't know. We talked a little bit about this before, about
Mm-hmm.
how sometimes, and you lead coaching programs around the world as well, and so there's some of the biases related to certain themes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would you agree that sometimes this is a theme that is perceived as soft or weak?
Yes, I
And
would
how
agree.
would you respond? How would you respond to that bias?
Yes, that, well, I would like to start off with saying that empathy is the new cool. It's a
And
very
you're making that happen. You
talent
really are. Keep
and
it
good
up.
to have, yeah. Um, so I think one of the reasons why empathy is oftentimes misunderstood or seen as weak, than some, I don't know, maybe there's like the achiever that sounds really cool, or command that sounds really strong. And then you have this empathy, like, oh, it's a nice guy, right? One of the things I think contributes to that misunderstanding is because when people think empathy, they also think sympathy. And when people think empathy, they just think it's just about caring for other people. I think it's when we think about sensing other people's emotions and feelings, I think you mentioned this too, that people associate that with sad feelings, not necessarily the glad feelings or the good feelings. And for even for me, somebody who had empathy, when I first saw this, I knew this was me. I owned it, but I didn't know how to really use this to make it cool or make use out of it. It was just who I was. It's something that naturally I did, but I didn't really know how to apply that. I think in terms of empathy, it's not always caring. It's just like the learner theme. Just because you have learner doesn't mean you want to learn everything and anything. And I think empathy is that too. You have that sensory to read the emotion, to capture the little signals that others may not be able to capture, understand emotions, but it doesn't necessarily mean you always care or get sucked into that emotion. To me, emotion is, again, 70% of our decisions are made based on emotions, whether I like this person or I don't like this color, or whether I feel good or feel bad. So to me, it's another piece of information and data that folks with empathy have to take action, to do something with it.
Yeah, it's not just 70% of the decisions that I make, it's also 70% of the decisions you make.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm interested in influencing another person or helping another person, that emotional awareness can really enable you to sell better to them what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And it might help you to understand their decisions about buying something. So I really think that's an important part of this. As you think about your experience, um, how has empathy have there been times when you've needed to regulate your empathy, and if
Mm-hmm.
so, how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, first is the being aware of it, being aware of, balcony, so to speak, of the empathy theme. And in my case, it's at a personal level, in my personal life, when I meet with friends and, family members, and we're talking and I'm listening to, some hardships or things like that. I think it's fine. I just absorb, I understand, I listen. But in a professional setting, especially when I'm engaging in one-on-one coaching or consulting, the balcony part of it is sometimes I can get sucked into the other party's emotion, that I kind of lose my ability to be the objective coach or be the rational consultant. So that's where I also have to dial my radar and be just aware of it and observe myself as a professional to make sure that I am centered around the customer's need and the client's need, rather than my natural pattern of understanding emotions.
Is there any specific actions that you've taken to help transform this natural talent for
Mm-hmm.
emotional awareness and really transforming that into a strength? Is
Yes.
there any experiences you've had, education, practices that you'd have?
Yeah. We often say like we have talent, right? But talent is, depending on how you use it, it can become a strength or it can
Uh-huh.
become nothing. Um, and you have to really invest in the talent that you have. And for my case, I've been, we talked about theme dynamics, and for someone like myself, having individualization and empathy together, I really, truly want to be authentic and be with that person when I'm with that person. And to help really understand that and strengthen my ability to truly understand the person, I've also, on top of uh, the empathy talent that I have, which is really, I don't know, it's natural for me, but maybe there's some unconscious or subconscious ability to read little minute signals such as the trembling lips or the change of tone or the change of body language or the eye movement or whatever that is. But I've gone into, became very interested in body language. So I've studied body languages, not to like a very professional level, but been able to understand in how certain people behave when they're in a certain mental state or a emotional state, whether they are interested, they're not interested, whether they're nervous or whether they're really engaged. Um, it helped me to better understand my clients and fine tune. So for example, if I'm doing a presentation in front of a group, I will not only kind of keep my empathy radar up to read the emotions of the room. Are they tired? Are they interested? Are they having fun? But also read the body languages to be able to better fine tune my presentations so that it stays engaging and it stays relevant to them as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of investing in a talent. You already have this ability to see these
Mm-hmm.
physical kind of reactions and physical cues of emotion, but to study them further, that must have been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been very, very interesting.
Yeah. Um, how about do you have any questions out there, Jim? Any questions popping
Oh
up in the
yeah,
chat room
no,
here yet?
lots of
Okay,
questions today.
good.
A good one. They are just coming to pouring in. So Annette asked, first off, she says she's low in empathy and high in relator, number 2. How can I use my relator theme to look more like empathy?
Yeah, I think that's many times I find that people are often surprised when they have high relator. They think they're surprised that they don't have empathy. And what I usually tell people is if you're a relator, you probably know how the people who are closest to you feel. So if you need to know how someone feels, there's a person that I really need to understand how they're feeling, you're going to have to get a little bit closer to them. You're going to have to get to know them a little closer. You're going to have to move toward them. But I think relator is a good theme to compensate for low empathy. I think it can, but it's really using your social talent to get a better emotional understanding of someone.
Danny, they were also asking about your 6 through 10. Do you have those right off the top of your head, or do I need to give you a second to look them up?
So my 6 through 10, I also have some unlikely pairs, which is adaptability and discipline. I also have maximizer and restorative. And I think the other one is probably a responsibility.
Okay. And then
no, it's relator actually. Yeah.
Okay. And that fits right in. Annette, as a follow-up question, asked, so she's a little confused. She says, yeah, I guess I'm a little confused because they seem similar. This is relator and empathy to me. I guess an additional question would be, how are empathy and relator similar and how are they different? We covered a little bit of that up front, but anything you can summarize, Kurt?
I think empathy is really more of a I know how you feel. It's a kind of a one-way street. It doesn't mean they know how you feel. It means you can kind of sense where they're at emotionally. Whereas relator is more of a mutual. I want to get to know you. I want you to get to know me. It's more of a two-way, and I think relator is more social, and obviously you can't take out the emotion, but it's more about relational, social relationships, whereas empathy is more of an emotional kind of theme.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, anything you want to add to that from a personal experience?
Well, I think if you think about analytical, it's the ability to see patterns in data or numbers that others cannot see. And similar to that, I think the empathy is the ability to see or read people's emotion, that how they feel, that some folks with low empathy may not necessarily be able to capture. I think there's a difference between sensing and reading and naturally caring, because I think I get this question a lot where folks will say, hey, I'm very caring and I like a lot of people, and why my empathy is very low. And I think there's a difference between that. Everybody cares, right? You don't necessarily need the empathy theme or talent to care about people. But this is just a different level of reading and sensing a part of who we are as human beings.
I like that distinction between sensing and reading to some degree. I mean, I think there's more sophistication in reading, and maybe that's the difference between raw empathy, where I can feel something going on here, whereas when it's more mature, it's I understand where they're coming from. There is I like the way you use the term, maybe this is the analytical in me, where you talk about emotional data. I like that. I think it's a more sophisticated way, and I think that's typically, I think that's how we want people to start to think about empathy, is this is an intelligence that some people have more than others that can really add to making things happen. Go ahead.
I think when I was younger in my life, so to speak, when my empathy was more, I think, underdeveloped or raw, it was more reactive. And I'll get sucked into the other people's emotions or be swung by other people's emotions. If their emotion was really sad, then I'll also become sad. If they're really happy and glad and energetic, then I'll also get sucked into their happy, energetic emotions, which was not generally mine, but more as a follower of other people's emotions. So it was more reactive. It was just how I was as a being, where now it's more about proactive. So I understand I have this more intelligence on data, and it allows me to not just be the being, but more do the doing. So I sense this, so I will go out and reach out and ask if there's anything going on. Or if I sense something, I'll reach out to the team member and find out if there was any misunderstanding and if there's anything I can do differently to engage a certain team member. Sense something where a client would say, oh, it was really good, but there's something, yes, but there's something hanging there, but allows me to follow up informally with a client to make sure it was indeed all perfect, and if not, what were the other parts that we can make sure it's completely followed up and done better.
Yeah, it's that sensing leads to action. I think that's a little bit like this metaphor of the thermometer. A thermometer just measures the environment, but it's interesting. People are always checking their phone, or they want, what's the temperature going to be? Because knowing the temperature helps us decide, am I going to wear a coat or not? Do I need to wear a short sleeve shirt or a long sleeve shirt? It gives us data that helps us understand how to act. And I think the same thing is true with this emotional data. It gives us guidance as to the direction we'd make, the decisions, the directions we take, and the decisions that we make. So I think that's a great example.
Yeah.
Danny, you made a point to say this idea of caring, and I lots of times folks ask me where empathy is for me, because I care very deeply, but I think my care is actually an empathy for me is 24. I think it's a component of woo, because I care about how people feel about me, right? With the woo, the strong woo in there, and so sometimes I think we can maybe miscategorize caring, and I think this is what you're saying. Caring does not necessarily equal empathy. in that setting,
yeah,
right?
because I think we all care about something, and we actually care about a lot of things in life. And similar to as a relator, doesn't mean you want to meet and build deep relationship with everybody. There's a selective part of it. Same thing with learner. It doesn't mean you just feed any type of information to a learner and then they'll be like happy just to learn new
Yeah.
things. Even learners have the certain topic areas that they're interested in really learning about. And I think same thing with empathy as well. You can have things that they do certainly care about, but it doesn't mean caring about everything and anything. And for me personally, this is my version of empathy, is that I'm kind of amazed by myself when I watch the news or TV. And, sometimes if you watch the news, there's often like bad news, disasters and things not so pleasant happening around the world. And how much it doesn't impact my emotion, it's more like registering as rational facts. So it made me wonder, like, why is that the case? I have like empathy number 2. I should be like feeling this. But for me, it's interesting when I'm with a person, then I'm reading that person and that emotion. But when it's watching a TV, it's delivered through like a electric signal, where in that case it's not so much. So I think that kind of helps distinguish reading and sensing versus caring.
It has to be live. I think that's probably true. I think there's something about the human interaction that activates this empathy. It's interesting. We have all kinds of artificial intelligence. I mean, computers can think. I wonder if there will ever create an artificial emotional intelligence. I personally don't. I think they probably have robots that probably can start to kind of recognize facial expressions and exchange, but I think it almost takes human interaction for empathy, real human interaction, for empathy to activate and to become real.
I think that's a good point. Katie asked the question. She said, and I'll throw this over to you, Danny. She says, my dad was a strong father figure and very empathetic. However, I'm not, and I have very low empathy. Why do you think that is? And that's a really hard question to ask because you don't know Katie at all, right? In that, but any insight into just how those dynamics might work?
Well, you didn't say that your dad was empathetic, did you, Danny?
No. I don't know if he was empathetic. I mean, he was
charismatic was the word you used.
Yeah, he was charismatic, but he was definitely caring. He was a university professor, and he was caring. Very caring about his students, and he was very passionate about education. So I'm sure there was part of empathy that he had within him. But I was more thinking in a sense of, when for myself as a young kid, it probably having a strong father figure. I didn't want to get in trouble or get punished, so it kind of
sensitive. Yeah,
I had to keep my radars really up to make sure I don't get in trouble or don't say the wrong thing or do the wrong behavior.
I get this question, Katie, quite a bit about people saying, I have this, but my parents did. I think that's another way that sometimes these things form in us because we live in a system where that's missing, and so to some degree we develop to kind of complete the system. So when I live in a family where there's not much empathy, I kind of develop to compensate sometimes. So that's might be one explanation why, for example, I have pretty high responsibility. My son has pretty low responsibility. I think I kind of I might at times took too much ownership of things. And so he didn't have to, and so that part of him didn't develop. And doesn't mean he's an irresponsible person, but that's not the first thing. And he has high positivity. I was pretty serious probably as an adult, and so he kind of brought some humor and fun to our family. He kind of compensated. So I think that's how it works. Families, I don't think individuals have to be well-rounded, but sometimes it's good if families are well-rounded. We kind of need a diversity.
Kurt, let me throw this one to you, and I think we can throw maybe a general theme dynamic at. She says relator and empathy very close, 14 and 17. When these
Hmm.
themes are this close in order, is there more synergy or does it matter? Or when we think about themes that are close to each other, what's the dynamic between the two of them? How does that work?
Well, I mean, 14th and 17th is kind of in the middle, so those are likely to be what I would call supportive themes. It's not always, it's sometimes. Means I can do these things. I can get close to people. I can be aware of how they're feeling, but it might take a little bit more effort and a little more intentionality. But typically, when we talk about theme dynamics, these are themes that are found in the highest part of your profile, maybe top 10. Those are the most powerful dynamics,
Okay.
and thinking about how those, and to some degree, themes can be separate. So I'm often thinking about, okay, what else could you use if empathy is lower and you need to know how people feel? You could certainly rely on somebody who has empathy. You could call up Danny, and he could probably help you if he's in the room with you. Obviously, it doesn't work over the phone or over TV, but I've heard of people having someone in the room with them who has empathy to help them kind of catch the vibe in the room. They have this kind of innate sense of what's going on that could be good intelligence for another person. So partnering with people who have it is another option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in Asia, there's an expression called reading the room. You walk into the room and then you kind of read the air of the room.
It seems like I've heard that quite a bit. I didn't know that was
Mhm.
just Asian.
Oh, maybe it's not.
We'll say it is, so we don't make Danny feel bad. That was Trisha's question, by the way. Let's wrap this with one more question, and Danny, this one's for you. It's from Angela. She says, having empathy is my number one. Does Danny find it a burden to have this strength, or somewhat overwhelming?
hmm Well, I would say there were definitely times where I felt it was more of a burden because sometimes more information is not necessarily good. And same thing with you have all this like again, the way I see it is when we say feeling, people often think that, wow, this is something we need to manage. We gotta like manage our feeling, and we have to be more objective, rely on ration and objective information versus this feeling. But I think the way I see it is feelings are just additional information that we choose to take action or do not take action. But all of these additional information, I'm like, sometimes I wish I was not able to sense it because if somebody is in real pain and I'm in a situation where I need to keep myself really objective, or I'm in a situation where I would like to help, but I don't necessarily have the solutions to help immediately, but the emotion is still there. So it does feel like a burden sometimes. And the way I've kind of transitioned is before it was really about I'm feeling all of this emotion of a individual or a group of people, and kind of thinking about, okay, with this information, how can I use it? What can I do about it? And apply this empathy theme or talent. So for I've been using this in terms of providing better client service or better client customer service. I've used this in persuasion, negotiation. I've used this in winning sales. I've also used this in my own consulting, where I am invited to meet and engage with cultures and countries that I've never been before. And because of this sensory radar, it allows me to understand my clients, my customers better, their culture better, and be able to adjust and quickly adapt to the needs of the situation. So in a sense, it also allows me to be very flexible in the moment, and allows me to understand my people better, basically.
I think there might be some people, though, who I think about people who work with trauma victims. I mean, people who are involved, like 9/11, all of the people who were involved in rescuing, and just the tremendous exposure to pain and suffering. I think, and that's an extreme case. I think people with empathy might experience that more than other people. They're going to feel other people's pain and suffering, and I think you almost have to have a way to manage it. Like with these people who were working at 9/11, they had to have some kind of they had to have some counseling afterwards, kind of post-traumatic stress syndrome. They had to get it out. They had to express it. And I think some people with empathy might need to have a plan for, how do I get this out of me? Once I've absorbed this emotion, how do I deal with it? Maybe I can't do anything. So I think that may be something that people with empathy have to have a strategy for managing the painful emotions that they absorb.
Kurt, we had way more questions than we could take this time, and set the record for questions during a theme Thursday here on Empathy. I'm going to drive this out to the Facebook page. So if you are listening live, I put the link to our Facebook group in the chat. If you're listening to the recorded version of it, it's okay. You can go to coaching.gallup.com, and you'll see in the right-hand toolbar it'll say Facebook, and just click on that. It'll take you right to the page. Ask to join if you're not in it already. Ask to join. I will put you in there. Danny, we'll need to. Would you be okay jumping in to answer questions on Facebook?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll put you in there as well, and to take the questions. We had a lot of questions around books, so be thinking about what are great books for people with high empathy, those kinds of things. So take your questions, take them over to Facebook, post them there, and we'll start working through them with the group there. About 3,500 people now in that Call to Coach Facebook group, so I think there'll be a lot of good dialogue. Kurt, you want to wrap this up for us?
Yeah, well, I just want to thank Danny for making empathy the cool theme, and you certainly have helped me to see it in a better light. It's pretty high on my list as well, but I really like the way that I especially like your story about how when you didn't have the words to understand, when you were in a country with a different language, you had this kind of unspoken language that gave you insight. And I think that's really what people with empathy have. They really rely on almost a sixth sense to help them understand people. So thank you for clarifying that and sharing how it has contributed to your effectiveness. And obviously I've got to see you and work with you. I've seen you in a room with people, and I would just want to say that I see that coming through loud and clear as you work very effectively with lots of people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Danny, and thank you. Danny and I have had the privilege of doing Call to Coach, and we actually did it in Korean, which was awesome, and we were able to produce those and get those to our audience there in Korea. So, Danny, thanks for using that talent as well to continue the Strengths cause, and we're actually looking doing it in Chinese and in Spanish here. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have those languages out and available for you as well. Remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com. Send us your questions or comments, and we did do this companion guide today. So if you're listening to the recording of it, if you head out to the blog post, if it's in that recording, or the live page, if it's still there, there'll be a link for the companion guide, and you'll want to download that, re-listen to it, go through it with the companion guide. A great resource available to you. We've just done one of these. We wanted to test it out. We thought empathy would be a great one to test it out on, and so we are testing this today. If this is an experiment that works, we will continue to produce the rest of them for each of the ones, including the ones going back and the ones going forward. It's just one of those things we want to see. So would welcome your feedback. You can send me any feedback you have on those, Jim_Collison@gallup.com. Love to hear how you like those, what you like about them, maybe what you'd like in them. We're going to try and keep them to one page, so we're not going to send you a book, but one page front and back. We'd love your feedback on that as well. I mentioned the coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com. All of our social links are out there, as well as our YouTube and all of our free resources we have available for you. Don't forget there's a meetup tab out there as well. We're adding Minneapolis this week to the meetup group, so we're almost up to 20 meetup cities around the country. If you want to host a meetup in your city, you can contact me as well, and we'll help you get that started. We have the iPhone and Android apps that are available in the stores. Just search Strengths Finder, and we'll get those to you as well. And don't forget to recapture these. These are all available on audio for download to your phone, to capture on a train and a plane and a car. A great way to get these and recapture that time that you might not be doing anything. And just you can put the earbuds in and listen to them. If you found this helpful, please share it. We'd love to have you share it on any of your social networks, and we'll look forward to the next theme Thursday. Kurt, do you know what we have?
Yes, so we have context, and we're going to have another person from our Irvine office, Jerry Hansen, is going to be talking about context, so I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. We'll do it again. We've got almost all of them covered at this point, and we'll wrap this up this summer. That's the number one question I get. When are you guys going to finish these things? And we'll be done by the end of the summer. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.